All right. Hey guys, welcome back.
This is the end.
The conclusion of 2020 as far as podcasts go for the Silver Bullet podcast. Thanks for joining us, guys. Me and James sitting here today, and usually what we do with our members and amongst ourselves and us as a business is we kind of sit down and obviously prepare for what is coming, meaning the next new year.
Got nothing.
Right, yeah, and you know what? I really don't even need my laptop here either. But we wanted to, I don't know, I guess pick each other's brains about what do we do about 2021? What's next? You know, one of those things. That's, you know, everybody's question right now. What's next? What do we do? Well, I think it's worth taking a look back at where you were at the start of 2020 and seeing, you know, and obviously talking about the things that went awry. Obviously there's one large obvious one, and at least figuring out what can we do differently to prepare for 2021, having been exposed to 2020. No pun intended about the exposed part. Does that kind of make sense, I guess?
Yeah.
That's where I was leaning.
Well, I think touching on that, like assessing, well, what were my goals? What were your goals for 2020? And then what things did I potentially accomplish? And then what things did I not accomplish? And then was COVID legitimately the reason, or was it the excuse?
Yeah, what was your reaction to everything?
Yeah.
And that's a pretty big aspect of what I would bring up to anybody. And, you know, we've done this with a couple people that I've worked with, specifically some of my one-on-one clients, people that I do nutrition coaching with, people that I do virtual coaching with. You know, you don't want to wait until January to figure out where you're going to be heading. So right. A lot of our talks came on more reactionary side of things. You know, we had planned for X, and when X didn't happen, what was our reaction?
Right.
And the reason why I think that's a huge thing is because it determines obviously your mindset about the problem. Most people say, you know, the problem isn't the problem, it's the way you look at the problem, right? So your reaction to said problem determined, you know, what I can essentially get out of you as a client or as an athlete or as, you know, fill in the blank. So your reaction to a goal or a incomplete goal or the inability to successfully achieve the goal timely says a lot about you as a person. And, you know, the obvious elephant in the room is obviously how COVID came down on everybody. And, you know, nobody's expecting a pandemic this year.
No.
But with that said, you got to see the true side of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Good and bad. And, you know, as far as what you can do with the opportunity, because believe it or not, there was an opportunity to do something different.
For sure.
And if we're just a hard thing to sit and
if we're going to be just frank and transparent talking on this particular topic, like I am not trying to be, not sensitive to the situation at hand. You know, COVID is a very real thing. Individuals are unfortunately dying, passing away from it. You know, we need to be respectful of other individuals' feelings and handle things, I would say, in an emotionally stable adult way. I have that conversation quite a bit. But with all of this being said, at some point in time, like if you're the individual who just continues to, let's say, feel sorry for yourself, well, this changed and this happened and this happened, what are you doing about it? You know? Have you made a game plan for what if this happens again, or what if this is the quote unquote new norm?
Right.
You know, what do we do from there?
Right. And there's a lot of essentially, you know, and maybe it's worth saying now that like not a whole lot of people are going to like hearing what we have to say on this topic, and that's fine. We've figured out the people who enjoy what we do and what we don't do within this year pretty well, but there is a really a good opportunity, I feel like, to showcase some initiative, per each individual, regardless of circumstance, regardless of wherever you're at. So take whatever goal you had in 2020 and look at it now, and then determine, is it still a valuable goal? Is it a SMART goal? Obviously, you look back at, SMART is the acronym, and ask yourself, is it still something worth pursuing now? And if it's not, that's okay, but you have to, essentially alter everything that you do in order to fit whatever new goal you have. And in some cases, that's healthy. That's probably healthier for a lot of people, healthier on an emotional level and maybe even a physical level. But if it is still something that you even have a slight interest in doing and you want to be able to do it, you got to find a new way to handle norm right now. Dane Miller had a great post on his social media, I think it was on his Instagram the other day, where he's from. The only way that the gyms can stay open is there are very strict rules. Everyone has to wear a mask at all times, no exceptions, no nothing, and it made it very challenging for a lot of his athletes that had to compete virtually online, where the USAW weren't mandating that people wear masks, but they had to based on where they're at. And so he was kind of just getting sick of hearing everybody's thing of it, and he posted a video of him taking 220-pound dumbbells for a ride on the incline. And he goes, y'all can sit here and you can piss and moan about the fact that we got to wear a mask, or we got to stay at home, or we can't have Christmas, or we're doing all those things. Or you can lay on the incline bench and move some 120s and just hammer some weight. Right. I'm going to stick with doing what I know works for me because it's proven results. Right. Because sitting here and whining about things isn't getting me anywhere. Sure. And he's not somebody who likes to collect mold in one spot. He likes to keep rolling. So yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for us to kind of look at 2021 in that manner and say, if we really are going to make a dynamic shift from what was accomplished in 2020, it's probably got to start with that initiative. Right.
Yeah, I'll just use myself as an example. I mean, I feel like I know me. It's easy for me to talk about myself. When this happened, as far as a business is concerned, obviously when I was forecasting 2020, I didn't put COVID in the game plan. Right. I had specific goals, whether it be growth, revenue, and whatever else. And I will say that some of our goals, even with fewer members, we will be able to achieve because we made a plan and we assessed what our goals were, and we just rerouted some things and just found a different way to get there. So I guess my challenge to everyone would be, whatever circumstance happens, you can still pursue the thing or the things that you want. It just may not be the clear cut direct path that you would once set forth.
I think that specific thing kind of deterred a lot of people from their initial goal. The fact that getting there on their own terms is going to be hard enough, that now they have to do all the detours and everything and work around all this stuff, that's it's not that worth it. Right. I don't want to say that's everybody, but it's just it's what we pick out as a society, is what we see. It's just generally our mindset is so weak, and that's it's unfortunate, and maybe there's not a specific finger you can point at any given thing to say this is the case, but everybody has hard times in their own unique way. I don't think people have enough hard times to really justify some of the lack of initiative they have. I use the word initiative because it's the one thing that just drives you to do something physical. That's at least what I think of initiative. And in my realm, in my space, and what I do for a career, you have to have initiative or you don't see progress. Right? And so even for a lot of the new people that we've had come in our doors the past 30 days, it's, what's the initiative behind your reasoning to set up an appointment with me? There's something out there that has led you through my door. What is it? So that way I can use it in the best possible scenario for you. Right. And it's different for everybody, but you got to figure out what your initiative is. So I guess, going from there, if you're somebody trying to figure out, okay, let's paint a scenario, because there's plenty of people in the scenario right now. Let's say back in February, March, you were very active throughout your healthy lifestyle, on track for great progress in the fitness realm, for this year. COVID hit, we took a couple steps backwards, had that brief uptick of initiative, like, okay, I'll make this work at home, I'll make it work on my limited equipment, yada, yada, yada. And then, we had all the different school system issues with kids going back to school, not going to school, e-learning, everything else. And there was just another hurdle. And then all of a sudden, October gets here, and you are the most unmotivated person in the world to do anything.
Right.
Maybe not your fault. Just one of those things where you're just playing the cards you've been dealt. How do I get that person back on track in 2021?
That's a hard question to
That's why I asked
answer,
you.
right?
That's why I asked you.
One of a question I ask newer individuals now, so I guess I would probably pose the same thing, and it's very direct, and I feel like it gets to what the individual really wants, and I just ask them frankly, like, what do you expect from yourself? Because I need to know. If you don't expect much from yourself, I'm not sure that my coaches can help you out. I don't know that our systems will help you out, because I know what I expect from our staff and our facility and everything else. But if you don't expect much, this isn't going to be a healthy relationship.
That's a pretty intense, instantaneous self-reflection right there, right? What do you expect out of yourself? What do you expect your daily mindset to be? What do you expect your grind to look like? Because that is going to essentially extrapolate all of the data we need to know about you as an individual. One, so that we know how to help you, right? But it already sets the tone for you as an individual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What else? I like that one. That's deep. That's deep. Everyone listening to this should already be asking themselves, what do you expect of yourself in 2021? Because 2021. Your answer, before it even comes out of your mouth, is right.
Sure. Yeah, the things that you're chewing on right now, and then
whatever is in your head.
Some people are sitting back in their chair or whatever, and they're like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too far down on this trail here, but if you don't expect much of yourself, that's probably where you need to start. Like, increase your expectations. Like, all of us, we have so much capability and potential, but that's useless if you don't put forth any amount of action.
It has nothing to do with fitness. I saw something the other day that. And I love following these different Instagram pages that have all the motivational quotes, because every once in a while they absolutely nail one, and it's awesome. And one that I saw the other day was, you can't be mad about the results you don't have for the work that you didn't do. Right. And there are so many people that are just so down in the dumps with their appearance, their energy, their overall health, coming into the cold seasons up here in Indiana. It's like, how can you be upset about that when you didn't do the things that were required to maintain the health that you did have? It's not my rule. One of my favorite things to say is, it's not my rule, it's physiology's rule. Okay, I'm just the person that passes along the information. Don't shoot the messenger. All right. And I don't put a whole lot of empathy behind it. I'm sorry, but sometimes that's the best way to touch that nerve, where you're like, you know what? If I do want this to happen, I do have to set my own expectations. And I do have to act on my own expectations.
Sure.
Right.
I think another thing would be just with working with the different individuals, like, we need to know, you need to know, I need to know for myself and to help others, like, where is your sphere of influence, and then how do they influence you? Just hear me out. I'm not making this, I'm completely neutral when I say this right now. I'm not being any sort of political influence, but if you're consistently on Facebook, YouTube, Googling things all the time, and you have particular sources where you are receiving information, I just shut it all off, because currently the influence of that is all is bad. Life is not going to get any better, and so just don't.
Or at least somebody's bad, and you should think they're bad.
Right. So maybe just shut that out for a while, and then kind of how does your family influence you? Are they encouraging? Do they support these goals? Your spouse? I mean, you have to look at those things, because those are. We see it all the time, One spouse drops off, they both drop off. They have to influence you in the direction that you want to go.
Right. The way I see it, if you're on social media just for the comments, you are wasting your time and it's
Right.
killing you. So I don't know. I think that is a huge problem. Your sphere of influence is huge, only because everything that we do surrounds a snowball effect. The success that you gain in the gym and also the things that you lose in the gym happen at a very small pace that chip away and they turn into drastic events.
Yeah.
And it always works that way, unfortunately. Just like the, you don't use it, you lose it philosophy of muscle mass, stuff like that. So you look at your sphere of friends or your sphere of influence, when those little pieces or those little things start chipping away at you that could increase into a snowball effect in a negative or positive way, it usually starts with the people you talk to. It starts with the people you interact with. It's the
Right.
people that you share ideas and thoughts and connections with. I have a perfect example, and I won't name names, of somebody that I worked with earlier this year. And I mean earlier, this was like January, February of 2020. And I said, look, if you want this year to be better as far as how you are going to be committed to yourself and what you want to see happen, you really need to think about surrounding yourself with people who want you to be that way as well.
Right.
And so that took this person essentially removing themselves from certain situations, placing themselves in other situations, and by the end of March, kid was going crazy. Like, it looked great. Everything was heading in a perfect streamlined place for him. Mm-hmm. And it just started with, who are you surrounding yourself with? Right. And then I know there are obviously scenarios that you can't change. You can't change who your family is. You can't, run away from a lot of those different things, but you can control who you follow on social media. Mm-hmm. You can control who you give your attention to, as far as, when somebody on social media says something you don't like and you sit there and just berate the person, or you're going through the comments trying to know who else supports this dude or anything.
Right.
Like, you are feeding yourself this type of negative energy that doesn't work.
Yeah.
You are in that person's circle now, and it's not what you want to see happen. So there's a lot of influence on your circle.
Yeah.
Who's in your circle? Because that'll be a major telltale sign of if you do accomplish what you're after or if you don't, in my opinion. And it's just because we see it quite a bit. A lot more, like you said, family and spouse related. Like, you got to get people on your side.
Yeah.
However that works for you. Doesn't usually come from us. It's got to come from a sit down, like, look, mom wants to do this and we're going to do this. Yeah. And everybody says, okay.
Yeah, the weekly text message, phone call that we make or whatever, like, that's just a touchstone here and there.
Yeah.
We might spend maybe an hour and a half with an individual in a week's time. It's really not that much.
No, not in the grand scheme of things.
And then, so I think another thing that, we talk a lot about goals. Goals are important, but you have to even look further than that. Like, if you reach this particular thing, what's the fulfillment you get from it? Or if you don't reach this particular thing, what happens?
Right.
And we have to kind of paint those pictures, because if you can't place yourself like in that, championship winning circle or whatever that thing is, you have nothing to like work towards.
Right.
It's just a goal.
Yeah. And not always a bad thing, especially if they're like secondary goals or there's something very minute in the grand scheme of things. But sometimes it's best to paint that broad picture, so that way there's more rationalizing that can happen as you come closer or have to deviate away from the goal for whatever reason.
Right.
I think that's a pretty good point as well. I think when you look at setting specific goals, especially for the lofty goals that you should be setting. I tell people that if it doesn't scare you a little bit, it's not good enough, in my opinion, and that's just my opinion. It needs to be something lofty that is going to challenge you, right? I think for a lot of people, when you look at creating new goals, you should also look at different avenues for learning about the goal you're trying to pursue. Like you said, and this is what made me think of it, we are only interacting with a client for an hour and a half a week, maybe,
yeah.
Right? And maybe it's a little longer than that, plus or minus a couple, maybe an hour or so, but that leaves a lot of hours where you can be in that area of influence, quote unquote, and it could be taking you closer or farther away.
Right.
I'm a big person on podcasts. I think it's the easiest way to get information these days. Whether that information is 100% reliable, that comes down to you doing your research on the person talking.
Right.
But if somebody tells me that they want to lower their blood sugar better by 60 points, by mid 2021, part of my goal process with that person would be, you need to be getting as much information as possible about how to do this on your outside time with me.
Right.
Whether that's through podcasts or it's reading books, audiobooks, whatever.
Definitely.
I think that is a huge factor that can play into somebody's hands whenever you're talking about achieving specific goals. I will warn you though, if you go into your goal of 2021 saying, I want to lose body fat, and you're just typing that in the Google search engine to learn some stuff,
Right.
that's going to be a problem.
Bad news.
That's a bad news thing. Maybe just turn on the Silver Bolt podcast, start from podcast 1 will help you out. But you get what I'm saying here. You should be trying to fill yourself with as much educational matter or as much area of influence toward your specific goal as possible.
Yeah.
Because an hour and a half with a coach isn't enough.
Yeah, and it just goes back to the influence thing again. We've both listened to the podcast where individuals talk of the people they were mentored by or whatever, and so you have to think like that. Whether it's a book, a podcast, people that you know, and relationships you're with. If you see yourself being here, it could be financially, it could be just as a husband, father, whatever. But you're not around people who embody that. You're around people who maybe bring you further away from that. Like, you're not supporting your goal whatsoever.
Yeah.
So what do you expect of yourself?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Do you want to be a social butterfly, or do you want to be a statue of David? Somebody said that. I can't remember who quoted that. Basically, in this book that I was reading, this guy had a big social platform. He was the guy that everybody enjoyed in the community. Not a very big community, but everybody enjoyed that person. But he also ran into some serious health consequences. That he wasn't like he was some kind of. Anyways, he could no longer go out and be a social butterfly. He could not go to the bars every night and hang out with all of his friends, everything. He had to deviate away from what he used to do, and essentially cut ties with everybody that he used to hang out with, all for the sake of his health. Right. And he was able to I think he had some kind of a rare form of cancer. Anyways, so he was able to beat that and probably added some years to his life. So
cool.
There are things that you have to weigh. They're not fun, but if you're going to be serious about changing whatever situation you are in right now at the end of 2020 and bettering yourself for 2021, I think this is the first conversation you have to have with yourself. Would you agree?
Definitely, sure.
Let's see if we can cover a couple other points here. Going into 2021, I guess for most of you, if you've never set a goal for yourself in 2021, you're just like, I'm just going to wing it and get moving. There's your first thing you need to change. Is set a SMART goal, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, right? Is that what they stand for?
Yeah. No, there's like a specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. You're good.
So the biggest thing is you want to set some parameters for yourself. If you don't set parameters, it's going to allow you to sway back and forth and kind of veer in different directions. And then if you're not specific about things, you could be achieving a bunch of different goals, but it's not what you're looking at, and so then you can think that you're failing.
Right.
Essentially, we talk about that with people who come in and they're like, "I want to lose weight," and we're like, "Do you want to lose weight or do you want to lose body fat?"
Yeah.
Because I can make you lose a lot of body fat and keep your weight the exact same.
Yeah.
That's specific goal.
On the specific part too. Sorry, it needs to be specific to you. You need to own it. Yeah. Like we hear it all the time. My doctor wants me to do this. My wife wants me to do this. My dad wants me to do this. Like, okay, what do you want to do?
Right. Yeah, that needs to be a really big part of it for sure. It seems like there's a lot of people that actually just, especially new people, show up based on recommendations from others, and that's fine. That's totally cool.
Yeah, I got them on the door.
There's still a reason that you're in here, right? What's going to keep you in here? That'd be one way to look at it. So yes, they need to be very specific. So if you're not somebody who's ever created a goal for yourself, you need to start there, because when you look at the specifics of something or current situation, it's a lot easier to track the progress. So much easier. But let's say you are somebody who created a quote unquote smart goal for yourself last year. Look back at how you analyze that SMART goal. What corrections can we make? Some people, and it's okay to make mistakes in the way that you look at your goal. That's all part of this trial and error. Mm-hmm. But maybe the timing of things was wrong. And I'm not just throwing COVID back into the mix here, but that screwed up everybody's timing for everything. Maybe the approach as far as how you were going to track your data was wrong. Maybe the way that you were going to track your weight loss was going to be tracking your sleep. Well, maybe it needs to be tracking your food.
Yeah.
Maybe it needs to be tracking your water intake. All of those are good things, but you have to figure out which one makes sense for you and your goal. So you can always go back to the same goal and start changing the variables. Right? That's the next best thing that you can do. Don't just in 2020 and be like, well, because I didn't get to where I was, that goal wasn't meant for me. No, you got to go back and you got to fix something. Mm-hmm. Right? We just talked about fixing the mental aspect of things. That's where 98% of the problem lies. But if you're really diligent and you really were, getting after it in the best way that you could, go back to your original goal. Start changing the variables a little bit of how you came up with your goal and how you're going to track your progress.
Yeah. Sounds good.
I thought that.
Next letter.
What is the next letter?
SMA, attainable.
Measurable, attainable. Okay, there's, I think the attainable and the realistic aspect kind of mm-hmm. are hand in hand. A lot of people will disagree with me, and that's fine. We work with a clientele base that is a specific demographic, more towards the lower 30s, aged up through middle 60s. Okay, we are not quote unquote in our competitive prime. Okay, it is not wise for somebody who is 6 years old to come in here and tell me that she's going to string 30 muscle ups together. We need to be a little bit more specific. I'd be cool and I'd be all about it, but that's when you really have to sit down and be like, okay, come on, what are you doing in here, mm-hmm. right? And that's another self-reflection one, because a lot of people don't want to let that part go, where it's like, no, I want this goal, and it's like, yeah, come on, I'm not trying to talk you out of this, but is this a realistic an attainable goal?
It's kind of what I was alluding to with the whole specific thing. It needs to be specific to you. I feel far too often, and it is. There are many great things of technology. This is one of the downsides with social media. Said person will see an influencer picture or them doing a specific workout. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Like, well, is that important to you? No, that's just what I want.
Yeah. Okay. I want to be able to say that I did what this chick was able to do, or this guy was able to do. I fell into that really hard after college. It was very easy for me to do that. And I didn't identify it until I actually left the space for about a year. Mm-hmm. And I obviously came back here and realized that, it feels good to train. It feels good to be healthy. It feels good to be strong. I don't miss feeling like garbage for the sake of me being able to make an Instagram post.
Right.
I don't miss that for a second. I don't miss absolutely losing sleep and feeling like my kidneys were failing and all these different things for the sake of a couple likes. Right. Like I don't miss it at all.
Right.
I don't know. You can consider that whatever you want, but it still happens, and it's a disease, to be honest with you. So timely goals be the next part. You've heard people talk about short-term and long-term goals. To put time frames on everything, I think, is dependent on the goal that you're after. I'll use Olympic weightlifting as an example because I'm familiar with it, because I have a lot of athletes that do it. Short-term goals would be, maybe setting a specific number for maxing out after a specific macro cycle. Like, mm-hmm. we're going a couple 4 to 8 weeks. I have a specific number in mind that's a timely goal. Like, this is my short-term goal. The long-term goal might be to qualify for nationals, by the end of the year or by beginning of 2022. Like, there's a long-term goal, but it's timely and it's very specific to what we are doing.
Right.
It would make no sense to try to figure out or set a goal for maxing out when we don't even know what your macrocycle or even your mesocycle is going to look like by the end of the year. Right? I don't want to set my PR numbers for 2021 until I've seen how I've progressed through markers of 2020.
Well, and there's
2022.
There's so many things to that you can track and kind of like see where you are or aren't progressing. You know, we talk a lot about, let's say, body fat percentage, muscle mass gained, and then, you know, your overall strength numbers. But like, we'll have a lot of individuals. What about medications that you've come off of? That can be a goal.
Yeah.
What about your movement quality? You know, let's take a video of your overhead, like air squat or whatever. Like, you're all over the place, and compare it 6 months later. You have to find the things that are valuable to you and that will help you feel better, perform better, like be more healthy, whatever it is. Not every single person has to come into a fitness facility and, well, I need to get stronger. And then next year I need to get stronger.
I need to look like this. I need to have this. You know, I think if I could set a goal for everybody in 2021, it'd be that everybody needs to go to the gym with the anticipation that when they leave, they feel better.
Right.
I think that should be the goal for every person in America, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
That your first 3 to 6 months of 2021, you should focus on how you feel.
Right.
Not focus on how you look, not focus on how you perform, not focus on the way that your body moves at maximal intensity, unless you're an athlete. If you're an athlete, have at it. Go get it. Well, but if you're in the fitness space for the full sake of just following this Instagram influencer to try to do the things they do, because high intensity is the mecca of all things programming, I think you should do yourself a favor for the first 3 to 6 months. How about just training to feel good?
Right. Hopefully we look back at this recording years from now and be like, those guys were smart. But you see this at the end, or, you know, coming at the roundabout of 2020, and we've seen a lot of injuries in sports because athletes weren't able to train how they were used to.
Right.
And we see the same thing with a lot of individuals at, let's say, other facilities, whatever kind of fitness or performance training that they do, when they went and did all of these workouts at home and come back to their regular
all those
routine.
nagging injuries were gone.
Right. So there has to be some stock and some benefit from things that we can take away from being at home and the things that did happen in 2020 and apply that to your 2021 goals.
Yeah, it's an easy way to look at 2020, especially if you fit in that category, and assess how can I fit that into my future, essentially. Now, what I mean by that, like, if you are somebody who trains with intensity and purpose and, you know, for the full sake of trying to stay competitive or keep that edge or whatever, you know, fill in the blank, but you've also been that same person who's dealt with those nagging injuries, you know, had the knee issue or the back issue or the joints that just would not stop becoming inflamed or whatever. And you saw after you went through, you know, quarantine, you were stuck at home for 6 weeks. You weren't able to do anything except for minimal body weight movements. And there's a great chance that you stayed in a caloric surplus.
Right.
But all of a sudden, everything felt amazing when you came back.
Right.
You should learn from that. How can I incorporate that into the next quote-unquote normal year that we have? Maybe I take my training into cycles. Maybe I go high intensity for 4 weeks and then I back off for 2 weeks and do a different program. Maybe I go for 12 weeks and back off for 4 weeks. You know, whatever that looks like. Maybe I go 6 weeks of training and I take 2 full weeks off to do nothing but mobility and stuff my face full of calories.
Right.
If that's going to keep you moving in a positive trend and help you keep that edge and allow you to do what you like doing training, I don't know why you wouldn't do that.
Right. Yeah. My wife and I, we had this conversation over the weekend. She, you know, we were talking about goals and we were talking about health, fitness, just all kinds of different things. And we got on the topic of body fat. And I said to her, just,
that's, you know, always bad to get on the topic of body fat.
Thinking about my, the clients here at Reclaim and just my own journey and, you know, working with my wife and stuff. And I said to her, I said, honestly, I firmly believe that most individuals feel, I am not saying look, feel better about 2 or 3% above what they think they should be at.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't get to those leaner percentages, time and place for that if you want it. But again, for performance and just daily life, especially in our situation with kids, I'm not saying to work towards having higher body fat and being unhealthy either. That's not what I'm alluding to. But the goal just can't be to be as lean as possible all the time, because that's not healthy.
No, there's health consequences for each side of the spectrum.
Right.
And I hate the term normal range, because I don't think anything normal by FDA standards is healthy. But I firmly believe, like you said, there is a range, especially for people when you're talking about body fat and adipose tissue. Like trying to get your body below a specific number can create so much stress in your body, and if your body can't handle that stress, you're not going to see positive results.
Right.
It'll probably accelerate in the opposite direction.
Sure.
So then it's just tiptoeing to the edge, figuring out where I can be and how I can maintain that. Right. I always thought it was funny. What's his name?
Bryce.
No, not Bryce. The NCI coach that did my training with. Jason.
Travis or Jason?
Jason. Yeah. What's his last name?
Phillips.
Jason Phillips. He talked about when he used to work in the early years with CrossFit athletes, specifically females. When they would make it to the games, back when they had the whole shebang for the games and it was a multi-day affair and all that stuff, he would talk about how when he would go to work with female athletes 10 weeks before they left, the first thing he said to them is like, I'm going to fatten you up. Like, I am going to put body fat on you because you will perform better.
Right.
And they were like, no, we're going to California and there's a beach and we're trying to look good. And he goes, okay, if you want to look good, that's fine, but you're going to be crappy athletes.
Right.
And they're like, okay. So, it just goes back to the point, body fat isn't the, end all to be all as far as health goes. It's really not. In a population where we are obese, it's easy to put emphasis
for sure
in that area.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But if you are somebody who is not in that majority and you are in the minority, or maybe you're just healthy.
Right.
Okay,
it's okay to be healthy.
It's okay to be healthy and not take it to the extreme the other way.
Right.
So, and that's not a very large percentage, but there is a percentage of that.
Yeah.
So these are all things to consider, especially when you look at 2021. You're like, okay, how can I change up the way that I look at things? How do I approach them? How do I create my goal? How do I move forward with my goal?
Cut off social media for 3 weeks. Unsubscribe from all of your
just make sure you can get the
spam
podcast.
emails.
Make sure you can get
keep
the
the things from the podcast and then our website, but then everything else can go.
Yeah. And I really do. I challenge all of you guys out there that might be listening to this, instead of looking at your training and say, how can I become the most insane, ravenous animal in the world in the gym? How about looking to start your training with the sole purpose of feeling better as a human being?
Right.
And when I mean feeling better, I mean being able to get up in the morning, have energy, feel like you are well rested, your joints don't hurt, you don't have nagging injuries, on top of you, you don't carry excess stress. What can you do to better those things? Right. Because it's an amazing feeling when you're healthy.
Yeah.
It
well,
really
and you know it when you're not. But that's and maybe we can close on this. That is the reason I started Reclaim. Individuals had no idea what it felt like to be healthy. I just knew that they didn't. I'm like, why don't people experience this? Like being able to wake up in the morning and have energy and work out and go to work and come home and do your thing, and if you're married, like enjoy, sex with your spouse and
things
just
like that.
be able
They should be able to do.
like just function as a human being day to day and not just feel like all the time.
Like things hurt.
Yeah.
So, and that was essentially, your goal for the community.
Right.
Not everybody's goal lines up with that, and that's okay. Those people aren't here. But the bulk majority that listen to us and, at least this podcast, they come into our facility, they have experienced healthy at one point in time, and they want to reclaim that. And so that's what we do. That's what we're here for. It's what we believe in. It's what we're convicted in, and we enjoy it. So from here, guys, I wish you guys a happy rest of your 2020. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Hope you guys stay safe, and I hope you guys are able to spend a little bit of this time reflecting as far as what you want to see happen in 2021, regardless of external variables that you cannot control.
Yeah.
what do you expect of yourself?
Yeah, not what others expect. What do you expect of
Correct,
yourself?
not what others expect, because the others never really have the best interest or your best interest in mind, even though they might say they do.
Right.
What do you expect for yourself? So, anything you want to do to close out 2020?
Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you 2021.
I don't wish time away, but I'm looking forward to
Let's rock and roll.
2021. All right, guys, this is the Silver Bullet Podcast.